Automobilista 2 1.5 is finally live. Dare I say it's the most anticipated update in quite some time, at least for a core update and not some special content. And although it does contain some new content, the highlight, the meat of the update as it were, are the revolutionary changes to the physics. Ryza have discovered or unearthed unexpected behaviors in the past months, specifically with tires, and found ways, I guess, to correct them. From what I hear, there may be some way still to go, but it's clearly been some major leap forward in the overall feel for the sim, and it's corrected some of those issues that many, including myself at times, have found it hard to look past. But I'm not really here today to review 1.5, as it were. I thought it might finally be time to take you for a ride in this wonderful little machine. This is the Formula Junior. A prime example of a Formula Junior at that. It was introduced into AMS2 a couple months ago now, and I was absolutely delighted when they first announced it. Formula Junior is a class that was created or really defined in the late 1950s as a true entry point for Formula racing. These were the type of cars that could be bought or built in a small garage by just a couple of guys looking to race. And it was really that launch pad for most Formula hopefuls from the late 1950s and into the early 1960s, really. But that was pretty short. It was Formula One's move to the smaller 1.5-liter engines at the start of the 1960s, which actually did away with Formula Junior as that true launching point. With the downsize of the big cars, Formula Junior became the de facto junior series for pretty much everything, filling both the amateur and F1 trainee gap, made the costs way too high for the average man and privateer, and the grids quickly dwindled. Shortly thereafter, Formula 2 and Formula 3 were conceived to effectively replace Formula Junior as the European ladder. Now, Formula Junior continued to exist to some extent, at least the cars did, and it did serve as a basis for what later became Formula V, and then ultimately Formula Ford these days. Overall, it's a small trainer car, but has quite a lot more power than you might expect, about double the later Formula 3. It has two different specs in the rules, allowing for about 1000 cc depending on the chassis weight. This amounts to roughly 100 horsepower, but with a car that weighs less than 1,000 pounds, it's much speedier than your average trainer. Now, I was a little bit worried when this car was first announced that there wouldn't be a lot of places to race it and that you'd be restricted to little club circuits or alternate layouts like this. This is Monza Junior, and while it clearly does fit very well around a circuit like this and is a lot of fun to race, because it has a little bit more power than your average trainer, you can take it to a lot of different tracks. The big Silverstone or the full Nürburgring, of course, the classic version. Plenty of places to race it and still have quite a lot of fun. Because Formula Juniors really were more of a rule set than a car, there were many different shapes and sizes of Formula Junior. There are actually some remarkable examples for Assetto Corsa and R Factor 2 by Sergio Loro. I recommend checking those out. What Ryza have given us here most closely resembles a Brabham BT2, a fine little example which trained drivers like Frank Gardner and Joe Schlesser amongst others. Truthfully, this car is a ton of fun, so let's take it on the circuit that it perhaps fits best. The classic Nürburgring Südschleife for a quick 5-lap sprint, simply to enjoy the thrill of driving. Little chirp of the tires as I lay down all 1000 cc's. You gotta love it. Running away from the grid here, 20 cars on the field. We'll see how far up I can get in this 5-lap race. Head on down to the first corner. Heavy braking, this one's always interesting. Second gear, see if I can sneak by a few cars on the inside here, just nipping that curve to the left. So we'll plunge onto the Südschleife itself, quite literally down the hill. Slide in front of one car as we got these S's in front. See if I can take the better lane on the inside. We'll work our way down this hill. It heads all the way down to the village of Mühlenbach. And it's a twisty way to get there. Down to first gear for this tighter one. Just get it on the grass a little bit. You really can't go too wide through here. Try to carry as much speed as we can. This final S a bit faster than the others. Just got to be careful about the edges of the course because there's nothing to protect you from the trees. Maybe a berm on the left here from the spectators, but I have a feeling that would launch you more than anything. Heavy braking here, late right-hander. Try to carry as much speed as you can. Very similar one coming up, but I always have more trouble with this corner. Fourth gear for just a moment. and then try to find the apex. Everybody just clobbering through the dirt there, understeering quite a lot. So carry some speed, getting towards the bottom of the hill now. Try to put it side by side, but you really just can't do it here. Long right-hander in front, 4th gear. Just tap the brake just a little bit on the way in, settle the car, and there it is, village of Mühlenbach in front. We'll take the 90-degree right-hander, heavy braking. Front, able to get the better run around the outside. A lot of bumps on this course. It's such a nice version of the course. Looks as it did in 1971, but really could be any year from the 40s through 50s, 60s. The Südschleife was relatively untouched. So we'll come on through this very fast S. Just a bit of a lift here on this lap. And wind our way towards Hothead. This corner is quite tricky. Maybe pass a few cars. Everybody stacks up. Get it back on the throttle, didn't quite carry the speed. Now I have this long left-hander, I have a car to my right, or to my left rather. Try to get the power down on the way out. So this will lead us up the hill, under the bridge, and back onto the beginning of the course, right on the backside of the pits. Try to get in the slipstream. This car would be all about slipstreaming around a very fast track, but a track like this, just on this section, the rest of it's so twisty, it really comes into its own. Car looking to my inside will brake just past the building on the right. Heavy on the brakes, get a lot of camber in the road here. You can actually carry the speed around the outside because it turns into the inside here, down to 1st gear, onto the concrete of the Nordkurve. Play with the oversteer here as we come into the final corner of the lap, wheel to wheel, as it's been for much of the lap, come across the line. Get it back up the gears for another lap. Here it is, here's the line at the end of the pits, there we go. P17, fighting for 16th, switch to the inside line, see if he defends coming down into turn 1, thought about it, out of 2nd gear. We've got a lot of speed this time, we'll just launch it over the top of the hill, there we go. Love to get a little bit of air there. Such a fun track, this one, and again, perfect for these cars. I can see why it was such a good pairing. The Grand Prix cars themselves are a little fast for this track. But this track really was, this circuit, the Südschleife at the Nürburgring, was really for the lesser series, the national races, and then the big races, Formula 1, touring cars and things, they all used the full Nordschleife that we know. But this sits on the land that the modern-day GP course was built on in the mid-'80s and destroyed much of the track. There's still a few roads here and there. Just get down to 3rd gear for this one. Missed the apex a little bit to the inside. I got a lot of trash and things on the road. I don't think it causes the grip to be any different, but it definitely looks good. Just toe the line. You can really feel the road in this car, and it's tough to say what's a placebo effect of just knowing that there's some different things under the hood, an AMS2 versus what's actually there, but this car feels so fun to drive, so connected to the road that I really don't think I would change anything about it. And for a track like this one that has a lot of road surface detail, it feels great through the steering wheel. Get it up to 4th gear. I was so happy to see that this car accelerates the entire way up this hill because it's not a shallow hill at all. And so for a junior car, I was thinking it might bog down on a track like this, but it really doesn't. We're a bit wide into the first of the S's. You can almost go flat out through there if you get the line right. All right, come up to Hothead once again. Try to spot a braking. Want to take the lunge. Get on the throttle. It really helps turn the car with the default setup. I'm running the default setup here. It's 105 AI speed. And I found them to be quite tricky if you bump them all the way up to 120. It's probably impossible, at least with the default setup, to actually beat them. So plenty of headroom, which is great to see. Come onto the backside of the course, right in the slipstream. Just trick them, jump up the inside into the Final couple of corners. Oh, I really play with it. It's not fast to slide like that, but it's so much fun. So we'll come out to the final corner there. These two in front, almost linking wheels. Gonna get me a run on the green car there to the right. We'll come across the line. We picked up just a couple spots at the end of the lap. P14, try to get another one here down into turn 1. 3 laps to go. Down a couple of gears. Jump onto the Südschleife. It's interesting reading about this car and understanding what actually happened with Formula Junior, because I remember seeing years ago Sergio Loro's Formula Junior cars for Assetto Corsa, and I had never actually heard of Formula Junior and figured it was some obscure type of car and things, but knowing that it really was this series that was taking the place, or the Formula entry type series in the late 50s, and it makes a lot of sense when the Formula 1 cars themselves decreased the engine formula. They effectively were running what were similar to Formula 2 cars just a few years prior, so there really was no need for Formula 2 anymore, and so Formula Junior here became kind of that lesser series. And because it was mostly privateers, when teams like Cooper and Brabham here entered their cars, they absolutely stopped the competition with some of their factory drivers and things, and really made it impossible for the privateers to compete. So that type of model, we see stuff like that in motorsports these days. So hearing it's been a problem ever since really what we think of as the vintage days of racing. It's the same things that are still going on these days with different series and how expensive it is to be competitive. But in its spirit, this really became Formula V, like I said, and Formula Ford these days. These series really think of as these competitive but achievable for young Formula racers. And it's a lot of fun. The little bit of extra horsepower that this car has compared to other smaller F3 or even F2 cars make it quite a lot of fun to drive. So hit that line a bit better this time. Bit of oversteer coming through the second one. Just play chicken with that fence on the inside. So call it to hothead again. Scharfkopf, I think it means hothead. All right, all the way down the gearbox, down to first. All stacked up in the corner. I think I've got one of them at least. We're running wide in front. Try to get up the inside, understeering there. There's no downforce, of course. It's a very, very raw driving experience. It's really just you and the steering wheel and the pedals. Absolutely love it with no HUD or anything. It just really makes it ultra immersive and a lot of fun to race around these vintage courses. The full Nordschleife, like I said, is awesome for this car. But all of the different tracks are a lot of fun. It really depends on what type of racing you want to do. Pull it down to second gear. Pull the car in front, hopping all over the curbs. On the outside this time. Get it down to first gear, try to carry some speed. There's a lot more camber in the road. Getting backed up a bit, shoved onto the extra pavement. Luckily that's there. We'll come across the line 3 or 4 wide, getting towards the bitter end of this one. 2 laps to go, up to P12. Down a second, you can see the axle spinning of the cars in front. I always love that. It was something for years we obviously didn't have. Oh, as the field stacks up here. So everybody making contact will slide on to the right. Very active car. Braking and shifting the entire time. It's just 4-speed, but you'd swear it had more from how much you shift. Didn't quite get the blip that time, and the rear end kicked out. The car does help you if you want to learn how to do heel and toe and things. I actually think this is a pretty good car to practice stuff like that, and it definitely punishes you if you don't get the blips right, but it's not so high power that you'll be spinning out all the time. It can really teach some good driving habits, especially for vintage cars. Just get down to third gear here. Just laying on the tire. They've been showing awesome videos of tire flex and things that are modeled in the sim now, which I think I've been in for a long time, but they've just been able to correct everything about the tire carcass and how it moves and how it reacts to the surface of the road, which Again, it's tough to say what's placebo versus what's real, but the amount of folks saying that they feel like the sim has just really evolved in a lot of different cars, I can definitely see the difference, and it's very enjoyable to drive. So we'll work our way up the hill. These guys side by side in front, and make it really interesting through this high-speed S. To back off just a little bit as everybody slows up. Yeah, get it down to third gear, see if I can carry some speed around the outside. So we'll turn into the inside for hothead. Here we go. Ooh, side by side there. Down the gears, everybody funnels into line. Kind of a weird line to take. What's good is that the AI aren't piling up. I had some issues, and I actually tried to do a video about this a little while back. But around this course in this car, surprisingly the AI were causing pileups and things. That's no longer the case. They're able to do a race without crashing into each other most of the time. But they're still doing some weird things. I'd love to see just the passing behavior as I try to go to a fake fifth gear. Oh, rookie mistake. Car behind's gonna try to overtake me here. Past the house on the right. Just carry some speed. You can get away with a lot more through this corner because it swings out wide onto the dirt just a little bit. Right, down to second gear. I'll try to get a good run through the final corner. Set them up for turn one. There we go. Up the inside. I'd love to see them properly defend a bit better. Or know, I think the thing is knowing when to go for a move. So P8 into the last lap. I find the AI are either constantly going for a move or they're just happy to ride behind somebody when they should be going for a move. They don't seem to know when the right timing might be. So we'll keep it on the inside there, wheel to wheel. Wow, almost making contact, really trusting your competitors. There we go, down to first. I'll be able to carry a bit of speed this time. Not being all packed in for the first time in this whole race. Got one car right in my mirrors though. A bit wide through the S's here, so take a bit more of the dirt on the left there so we don't slide out wide. It's going to come on the left side, squeeze him out. Down to third gear, try to find a late apex. Here we go. With so many interesting things on the horizon, and so much that's interesting coming for AMS2, with things like Le Mans and other vintage content that I'm very interested in. I'm so happy that they were able to resolve some of these long-standing issues and really resolve them this time. There's been a lot of fixes over the past couple of years, and so many times that we've booted up the sim to say, hey, they finally implemented a new fix or there's a new version, but it really feels like this time they've gotten to the bottom of whatever that thing is. The car's gonna come back on me. I didn't quite get the run out of that corner at Nürburgring. Oh, side by side. Come up to the S. So tricky there. Sliding it side to side. Bogging down a bit, we'll come up to hothead, maybe get the lunge. Down to first gear, really stuff it in. I'm not going to be able to get the car to rotate. It's going to come down to the final couple of corners. There we go, slide up the inside, he pretty much let me have that. Around the inside, come up the hill then. Block him off with the slipstream, up to fourth gear. Try to sink behind your windscreen as much as you can, just let the air pass over. Might be able to outbrake him coming into this final couple of corners. Oh, there he is, getting the run on past. Down to second gear. Run right out to the grass. We'll come through right onto the inside line. It's my favorite line it's turning into. Side by side. Try to pick up the accelerator, slide it a bit to the side. Car in front's gonna get a run. Oh, and I missed the apex in the final corner. Try to carry the speed as best I can. I think it's going to be a P6, P7 or something, but a hard-fought battle that. P6 coming across the line. It's a lot of fun. These cars feel really good, and I think they've felt pretty good since the release of them, but I know all of the other cars in the sim everyone's just gushing about how nice everything feels. And like I said, it feels really good that Ryza have gotten to the bottom, or seem to have gotten to the bottom of whatever issue was long-standing with a lot of the physics that put so many people off of this sim. And I hope a lot more folks can have fun with it like I have and for the past couple years. It's a great time around vintage tracks like this and cars like this, and I think this is a great combo if you're wanting to learn a bit more about driving vintage cars. Not too much horsepower that you can get in too much trouble, but plenty to have quite a bit of fun with. So I hope you enjoyed this. Probably be back and racing this car somewhere else in not too long. But thanks for watching. This is GP Laps, and I'll see you all again next time.